What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fulltime MMA, and we are here today to give you a breakdown and predictions for UFC Fight Night, headlined by Alexa Grasso versus Viviane Araujo. This card was going to be headlined by Sean Strickland versus Jared Cannonier, but Sean Strickland was out, unfortunately, due to injury, so we have a new main event, which is Grasso versus Araujo. New co-main event's going to be Misha Cirkunov versus Alonzo Menifield, two light heavyweights throwing down. But before we get started, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, subscribe button, and the notification bell. Don't be a baby back bagel biting beta male, because you know what time it is. It's Full-Time MMA. And these predictions are brought to you by Bud Light. I'm not actually, yes, I am sponsored. Fuck that, why would I say that? Like, you guys don't know I'm not sponsored by Bud Light. Alright, guys, we're going to jump straight into it. We're going to start with our main event of the evening, which is, of course, Alexa Grasso versus Viviane Araujo. In this fight, you can see that I am picking Alexa Grasso to win. She's currently riding a 3-fight winning streak since moving up to 125 pounds after losing a majority decision to current UFC strawweight champion Carla Esparza. She'll be fighting Viviane Araujo, who's also 3-1 in her last 4 fights, coming off a unanimous decision win over Andrea KGB Lee after losing a unanimous decision to Caitlin Chookagian. This is a tough fight to call, but I've got to go with Mexico's Alexa Grasso to win via unanimous decision. She's got more paths to victory in this fight. She's got great kickboxing as well as jiu-jitsu, and she hurt Carla Esparza in their fight. We also saw Araujo rocked in her most recent fight against KGB Lee, so I could see Grasso finishing this fight actually. More than likely, I think she wins a decision, but she could also finish. She could submit this fight. She could even get a TKO in this fight. So I definitely like Alexa Grasso in this fight. If Viviane Araujo wins, I think it'll only be a submission. So I'm definitely taking Grasso. Moving on to the light heavyweights, we've got Misha Cirkunov versus Alonzo Menifield. Menifield is 5-3 in the UFC since earning his contract on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, and he's 3-1 in his last 4 fights, coming off a first-round TKO finish over a UFC debutante. The guy was stepping up on short notice after Menifield's original opponent was forced out of the fight, and of course Menifield made light work of this guy, making his UFC debut with about a 500 record. Misha Cirkunov is not a UFC debutante with a 500 record. Well, actually, he has a 500 record in the UFC. He's 6-6 in the UFC, riding a 3-fight losing streak currently, coming off a second-round submission loss to Wellington Thurman after losing a split decision to UFC veteran Krzysztof Jotko. Both of these guys are fighting to prove they belong in the UFC, and for that reason, it's hard to call this fight. Cirkunov's on a 3-fight losing streak, but he's been fighting higher-level competition in that time and during his entire UFC stint. Menifield has lost all of his toughest fights in the UFC, and Cirkunov is one of those opponents on his resume. So I'm actually going to pick the underdog Misha Cirkunov to win this fight and snap his 3-fight losing streak because he's fought and beat higher-level competition throughout his career, and I think he'll get it done here as a 2-1 underdog. I am taking Misha Cirkunov. Next, we've got Jonathan Martinez versus Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson is 3-1 in his last 4 fights, coming off a TKO victory over Darren Elkins, and he's 18-11 in the WEC and UFC combined, meaning this will be his 30th fight between the two promotions. Cub Swanson is coming down to 135 pounds for the first time in his UFC career at 38 years old, which is interesting because he just got a pretty impressive win at featherweight where he's used to fighting. So for him to come down a weight class after a win is pretty uncommon. This is a super tough fight for me to call because Cub, I think, should win this fight due to the level of competition he's faced in his career and the fact that he's not looking like he's slowing down. He's 3-1 in his last 4 UFC fights, but there are intangibles such as his age and this being a new weight class for Cub that make this a super tough fight for me to call. For me, this is a coin flip, even though the odds makers have Cub Swanson as an underdog. I'm flipping a coin and calling Cub Swanson to win this fight, but I am a little hesitant picking him in this fight because of those intangibles. He's getting up there in age, new weight division, 10 pounds less. Like, it's very sketchy for me. So I'm taking Cub, but I am not super confident. Jonathan Martinez is a pretty impressive. He's got had some pretty impressive wins in the UFC. So yeah, a good fight though. Definitely looking forward to it. Next we've got Askarov versus Brandon Royval. Askarov is 3-1-1 in the UFC, coming off a unanimous decision loss to Kai Kara France, which snapped an impressive 3-fight win streak over legit competition such as Tim Elliott, Alejandro Pantoja, and Joseph Benavidez. He fought to a split decision with Brandon Moreno in his UFC debut as well. Brandon Royval is 4-2 in the UFC, currently, a draw with Brandon Moreno. Either way, Brandon Royval is 4-2 in the UFC, currently riding a 2-fight win streak over lesser competition, which snapped a 2-fight losing streak to Moreno and Pantoja. This is a tough fight to call, but I am taking Askarov. He's had better performances against common opponents as well as fought higher level competition, and I think he should win this fight unless he gets caught in a submission, which Brandon Royval can submit him, and I think that's the only way he's going to win this fight. I am taking Askarov via unanimous decision. Last but definitely not least, to me, this might be the people's main event. We've got Daniel Rodriguez taking on Neil Magny. D-Rod is 7-1 in the UFC, currently riding a 4-fight win streak against decent competition, most recently beating Li Jingliang via split decision. Neil Magny is 19-8 in the UFC, coming off a second-round submission loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Neil Magny is 5-2 in his last 7 fights. I've got to take Neil Magny to win this fight. Not only has he had better performances against common opponents, Li Jingliang, but he's also a more experienced fighter. He's the most experienced fighter D-Rod has faced to date. 19 wins in the UFC is extremely impressive and very valuable experience. Neil Magny will also enjoy a 6-inch reach advantage in this fight, which I think will definitely help on the feet, which is where I believe this fight will take place. Neil Magny will be able to utilize his reach and distance and just experience and outpoint Daniel Rodriguez en route to a decision. That is my predictions. I'm taking Neil Magny. I'm taking Askarov. I'm taking Cub Swanson, Misha Cirkunov, and Alexa Grasso. And with that being said, it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. I'm out.